The year is 1978. President Jimmy Carter rides high as he shares a Nobel Peace Prize. But conflict continues in the Middle East as Israeli troops move into the Lebanon. The United States makes another leap forward in space technology as the shuttle is rolled out. And on the 15th of February, a man is arrested in Florida who eventually confesses to 23 murders. Nearly all the victims were young and pretty, with a strong resemblance to each other and to a girl who once turned him down. The police were fairly sure he had killed at least 15 others as well. On the 15th of January 1978, a student had been found in Tallahassee, raped, beaten and strangled in the Chi Omega sorority house. Her name was Margaret Bowman. In a nearby room, also dying, was Lisa Levy. Her body had been savagely bitten. Also attacked but alive in the same sorority house were these girls, Karen Chandler and Kathy Kleiner. 90 minutes later, Cheryl Thomas was brutalized in her bed by the same man. 3 weeks later in Lake City, a 12-year-old schoolgirl disappeared. Kimberly Leach's body was found in a river 2 months later. The following week, a patrolman stopped a stolen car. The driver, here led by the police, said he was called Chris Hagen, but wouldn't give any more information about himself. Then he claimed he was Kenneth R. Meisner of Tallahassee. But this turned out to be just one of the names on the many stolen credit cards he had acquired. It took several days for the Florida police to realize they had caught the most wanted man in America, Theodore Robert Bundy. He was on the run after having escaped from Aspen, Colorado, during pretrial hearings for the murder of another pretty girl. So now, the Florida police looked for any links with the recent murders and disappearances of young women locally. Bundy strongly denied all their accusations, quite confident that no evidence existed to link him with any of the brutal killings in the sorority house and afterwards. But his composure slipped when the police followed up the bite marks left on Lisa Levy. He violently resisted, and 6 men had to hold him down in his cell to take wax impressions and these photographs. The pattern of his teeth fitted with the marks on Lisa Levy's buttocks. Now he set about charming his captors. Everyone who met Ted Bundy agreed that he was intelligent, cultured, and personable. Very few people could believe he was a crook, let alone one of the most savage serial killers ever. What they couldn't know was that he was a classic psychopath, internally raging and able to kill without remorse. Unusually for a serial killer, he was also very attractive to women, which was why so many girls fatally allowed themselves to be picked up by him. Ted Bundy was a charmer. He charmed shoes off of. He was thoughtful, charismatic. He was an enjoyable, likable, attractive person. Born illegitimate in Philadelphia in 1946, Bundy was an intelligent but lonely child. At Stanford University, he got engaged to a girl who had dark hair parted in the center, but she broke it off, saying he was emotionally immature. Psychiatrists have speculated that this was the trigger which set him off. Nearly all the 40 girls who were later to disappear when they came into contact with Ted Bundy had center-parted dark hair as well. In California, he volunteered to help the local Republicans, but was soon in trouble for dirty tricks. When found out, he was boyishly unrepentant and typically charming. It's hard for me to believe that what I did is newsworthy, and my part in the campaign was so insignificant. I'm embarrassed that I should be getting this publicity from it. Really embarrassed.
At the end of the 1960s, he moved to Seattle, got a psychology degree, and entered law school. In 1974, girls started to disappear. On the 31st of January, Linda Ann Healy, a 21-year-old student at the University of Washington, went missing. Then Donna Mason, a 19-year-old student at Evergreen State College, never returned from a jazz concert. Susan Rancourt, another student aged 18, went to a movie and disappeared. Roberta Parks, aged 22, vanished on a late-night walk. An unknown man left this bar, the Flame Tavern, near Seattle Airport, with Brenda Ball. She was never seen alive again. Her ravaged body was found months later on nearby Taylor Mountain. With it were several other decomposing corpses, including that of the first Seattle victim, Linda Ann Healy. Then George Ann Hawkins, aged 18, walked back alone to her Washington University sorority house, but never reached it. The beach at Lake Sammamish was crowded on the 14th of July, 1974. A man called Ted, with his arm in a sling, asked several women to help load a boat onto his car. At least 2 refused, but Janice Ott, aged 23, agreed to go with him and disappeared. Soon after, Denise Nasland also went missing from the beach. Their decomposed bodies were found together near the lake on the 7th of September, along with those of another unidentified female. Other remains were found in the area too. Now the police had something to go on, since several girls could remember the man. They issued a photo fit picture, which turned out to be remarkably accurate. More women came forward when they saw it to tell of having been approached by a man with his arm in a sling. There were eventually 3,500 suspects on the state computer. Number 7 was Ted Bundy, but by the time the police reached his name, he had moved on. In August 1974, the disappearances in Washington ceased. Bundy was in Salt Lake City, and women started disappearing there. Nancy Wilcox, aged 16, high school cheerleader, was last seen in a Volkswagen on the 2nd of October. Her body was never found. Melissa Smith hitched a ride on the 18th of October. She was found strangled. Laura Am vanished and was slaughtered on Halloween. But Carol DeRoge, aged 19, turned out to be a tougher proposition. In the Salt Lake City parking lot, a phony cop got her into his Volkswagen, then snapped handcuffs on her. She managed to get away, but later she failed to recognize a photograph of Bundy. Over the next 6 months, a series of other girls disappeared in the Salt Lake City area. The last, on the 1st of July, was Nancy Baird, an attendant from this gas station in Golden, Colorado. On the 16th of August, 1975, Sergeant Bob Haywood challenged a suspicious Volkswagen. It drove off wildly. Stopped after a chase, it proved to contain masks and handcuffs. The driver was arrested. It was Ted Bundy. He was released on bail and set about charming his way out of trouble. And yes, I intend to complete my legal education and become a lawyer and be a damn good lawyer. Then I have a great model over here. So I think things are going to work out. That's about all I can say. Forensic scientists had combed the car and found a hair that could have been Melissa Smith's. Witnesses also reported seeing him where one of the girls had disappeared. Carol DeRoche, who had escaped from his car after being handcuffed, picked him out of a lineup. When credit card slips proved he was lying when he said he had never been to Colorado, he was charged with kidnapping and attempted murder. Other states became interested. After a legal battle lasting 13 months, he was found guilty of aggravated kidnapping. He then faced further charges. I have got to keep myself together. I have got to stay calm. I've got to keep my presence of mind because as long as I do that, I'm going to beat these people. His first attempt to beat them was an unexpected escape. Released from his chains and left in the courthouse library, he jumped from this window. The local sheriff was surprisingly relaxed. About 10:30 this morning when he jumped from the window. Have there been any hostage-type situations or stolen cars? No. While helicopters searched for him, he hid out in a cabin on Aspen Mountain for 5 days before coming back through the roadblocks to steal a car. He was rearrested a few blocks from where he had escaped. So now he slimmed down until at the end of 1977, he was thin enough to make another escape. This time through a hole he cut in the ceiling of his cell. By the time the alarm was raised, he had driven to Denver in a stolen car and hopped a plane to Chicago. From there, he flew to Florida, where his urge to kill overwhelmed him. Shortly after the Tallahassee and Lake City killings, came his capture in the stolen car. Despite the telltale tooth marks, the state authorities were afraid they didn't have a certain case. They offered a deal: plead guilty, and they wouldn't request the death sentence.